Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga Show. Sorry, there was a bit of a pause there, wasn't there? But yeah, hello and welcome to the Bundesliga Show, the predictions Thursday night special. You've got everything coming this week, haven't you? Obviously, we had Monday night show, we had the review with Peter and I. Then last night you had Rune and Rory's obviously slightly earlier than usual fantasy football. Then after the show today, we've also got a special with Rory and VfB Americana as well. I don't know if you've seen that, Peter, but
yeah, I have indeed. Yeah, it'll be a good thing to see Travis again. And yeah, I highly recommend everybody tune into that show as well, because it should be a good match there in the Europa League this evening.
Yeah, definitely. And they're going to be analysing the VfB's game against Celta Vigo in the Europa League, which is just kicked off, I believe, as we speak. That's going to be 11 o'clock Central European time, which I guess 10 o'clock UK time, and I don't know what time US. You'll have to check that out yourself. So anyway, very good. Yeah. So remember, if you're new to the show and you've not seen us, don't forget to keep liking and commenting and all of that jazz. Also, don't forget that we're still sponsored by the brilliant Covert Football Trips as well. Rich's brilliant company over there on the island, as you like to call it, Peter. Yeah, fantastic. They'll organise all your travel over to Germany or to Italy to see the game of your choice. So contact him at Covert Footy Trips. They're also on Instagram, so that's probably the easiest way to contact him, to be honest, if you're interested in that. Yeah, so, and also don't forget Bully News as well, Runa's fantastic English speaking website. So all the best. So it's over to Matchweek 5, isn't it, Peter? Yeah, it seems to be kind of slowly ticking into the season a little bit now. You know, obviously Matchweek 5 is where we start to get to know a little bit about what we expect from the teams this season. A lot of teams still very mixed, aren't there, at the minute? Obviously, teams who've started really well, teams who've started really poorly. But I still feel as though the majority of teams, we don't really know that much about them yet. You know, a lot of teams have been up and down. A lot of teams on around about 6 points, meaning they've won 2 and lost 2 of the games so far. So this is going to be quite a pivotal week as the season kind of starts to gain momentum now. So let's start with the Friday night curtain raiser. I mean, it's once again, it's the Rekordmeister in town, just as it was on the opening night when they played Leipzig. This time they're hosting Werder Bremen, Peter, and I don't think many people are going to be giving the green team much hope, are they, in this one?
No. As a matter of fact, if you're getting a sense of deja vu, it's because of the fact that we were just discussing horrible historical headwinds for a team that was squaring off against Bayern at the Allianz Arena, namely Hamburger SV, who had lost so many lopsided victories against Bayern at the Allianz. And there was that famous, what was it, an 8-0 defeat, I think, in 2013 that led to the Hamburger SV offering its fans a free barbecue at the Volkswagen Stadion. This is not something that we have forgotten. Germans, of course, well, barbecue is probably even the incorrect word. That's American parlance. More of a grill fest featuring lots of bratwurst. The historical parallels with Bayern and Bremen are awful. As a matter of fact, they have not scored. Bremen have not scored a goal against Bayern since May 5th, 2023. I looked it up. It was our old friend Niklas Schmidt, a friend, a player, SV Werder Bremen player, who was quite open about his mental health struggles. Later ended up moving on. But the last time that Bremen beat Bayern, as a matter of fact, in the league was in 2008. To put that into context, we have Mesut Özil and Claudio Pizarro scoring goals for Bremen that day. I am not giving Bremen anything of a chance here. I don't think this is going to be a competitive fixture at all. And the Bremen team is, of course, really, really struggling, particularly after that 0-3 loss to Freiburg. Karim Koulibaly, the young center half, is struggling in defense. It might be the case that he gets replaced by Amos Pieper, who will pair alongside Captain Marco Friedl. That does not matter. It shouldn't matter at all. Arsenal fans may wish to tune in because their goalkeeper, Karl Hein, an Estonian with a nice German name, that happens, is going to be in goal for the injured Mio Backhaus. I don't think he's going to have a very good evening, though. This is a mismatch historically on paper. It's Oktoberfest. It's the Allianz Arena. It's Joshua Kimmich and Leon Goretzka both celebrating their 300th Bundesliga appearance. I'm simply going to go for a 5-0 Bayern victory in this case. And I wish I could say there was a good Frauen-Bundesliga match to tune into on Friday evening instead of this one, but I checked and there isn't. So I don't know. We'll just have to, we're gonna have to get through this one and get on with the weekend as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, they could have picked a better one for the Friday night curtain raiser. Really, I think most people are tipping a blowout really in this game. By the way, Ballum, good to see you checking in as well. He agrees that Hein sounds like a German name, definitely. Yeah, as you say, Peter, you do get quite a few players like that are from like Eastern Europe with German names.
I mean, you're looking at former Eastern Prussia in that area is what you're looking at.
Very true. Very, very true. But yeah, we sync up in this one, Peter, basically to cut it short. I think a 5-0 is about right. I hope it doesn't get any worse for Werder, but certainly if they produce a similar performance to last week, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more potentially. I hope they go with Victor Boniface from the start because he might potentially be more motivated in this game, obviously, to try and show himself against the old title rival, Bayern. Still can't quite believe that Boniface is there at Bremen. And I guess from the comments last week, it doesn't bode too well about his, does he really even want to be there? I don't want to make accusations here, but I mean, if I were Boniface, I wouldn't want to be at Bremen, in truth. So, yeah, I mean, it's not been a great start to the season for them, despite that 4-0 win over Gladbach. And I think they're going to get hit for another big defeat here, 5-0 Bayern Munich. So, will Mark be dressed up for Oktoberfest or Peter? Do you plan on bringing your lederhosen over there in Missouri, Peter? Or?
Well, I mean, Oktoberfest, the Bayern photo shoot is over. If you may recall, we did a Wiesenzeit weekend last year, and we went to Unterhaching and did a little bit of lederhosen shopping during halftime, after that wretched game where it rained on us nonstop. We also went to Ingolstadt that weekend, and we eventually we did make it out to Ballum's Wilzing. Match canceled twice, and we had to wait until March when they played Bayreuth, but we did do it. So we'll have some vlogs coming up. It's going to be a little bit past the Wiesenzeit this year. I mean, those kits are, there's the Oktoberfest kits that everybody can enjoy. I think Ballum was mentioning them. On the topic of kits, that Werder Bremen kit is really, really wonderful. That sort of dark midnight green with the gold lettering and everything. Victor Boniface did a social media post with him showcasing that kit. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything coherent about them. He said something about, like, I don't know, carrots and Earth Day. It was the weirdest German footballing social media post over the past week, apart from Felix Nemetschel, of course. And I mean, does Boniface want to be there? I think he does, and I think that he's working hard as well. The problem is that there's some questions over his fitness. And Stefan said he was trying to do too much. He was trying to work too many deep drops, which is what a German striker should do. But in the case, and excuse that dog in the background, I apologize. Anyways, I'll turn it over to Mark for Mainz versus Dortmund, the next match, because it seems like we've talked Bremen and Bayern to death.
Yeah. So Mainz Dortmund, a good kind of starter for the Saturday games. Obviously, the much loved Halbvier kickoffs in Germany. This is a decent looking fixture. Obviously Mainz coming in the back of this with that brilliant 4-1 win, where the likes of Nebel, look really good. Sano, who we mentioned on Monday, played fantastically well in the game. Even Sieb managed to get on the goal scoring front for this match. Against the Dortmund side, who were just ticking along, they weren't great against Wolfsburg. They required quite a bit of luck to win that game with that goal that was about a millimetre on the wrong side of the line for the VfL. That would probably have ended a draw otherwise. But they've been playing quite okay in general. I wouldn't say they're exactly like setting the house on fire, but they're still winning games. They're still, they played well against Juve in the Champions League as well. I think away from home, they're looking quite strong. So while Mainz obviously come into this in a bit of form, I feel as though Dortmund will get the better of them in this game. I've gone for a 3-1 win for Dortmund in this. I can see it being 1-1 and then Dortmund just breaking away in the last 20 minutes or so. Obviously, the likes of Serhu Guirassy is just unplayable at times, isn't he? I think he's going to get a goal. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good game, but a 3-1 win for the VfB. Peter?
I'm going to go for the inverse here, and I will tip Mainz for the 3-1 shock upset.
Wow.
This has actually happened. That scoreline has happened 3 times. Or the 3-1 scoreline has happened twice in the last 3 matches. Dortmund won 3-1 in the spring, and then Mainz upset Dortmund 3-1. Let's not forget last autumn. That was last November. Mainz are looking quite good, and I covered Bo Henriksen's press conference today. Sieb has been guaranteed to start over Nelson Weiber at the top of attack. Sieb is, of course, our boy. Mark and I have been scouting him since the Goethe Fürth days. He's very magical elf dwarf, Zagdan Shaqiri, heavy, muscular specimen, not the tallest guy. And I recommend checking him out. Mainz, of course, do have some absences in this one. Dominic Hardcore is once again suspended, but that shouldn't be a problem as Stefan Bell slips in. Anthony Kachi has also been ruled out for the duration of the calendar year, but I'm not too worried about that. I think it works perfectly into Henriksen's tactical plans. You simply slip Norden down to the left wing-back role, and you bring back Jae-Sung Lee, who is fit after a time. So with Sieb in good form and Jae-Sung Lee and Paul Nabel working as the buttressing attackers, I really, really like Mainz's prospects at home here. I think they're riding high after that amazing victory over Augsburg in which they scored 2 shorthanded goals. And Dortmund, do we say that they played well against Juve, or do we say that that 8-goal fixture was an incredibly sloppy match? I'm going to tend towards the latter, and I was not inspired by what I saw last Sunday. Let's not forget that with the exception of the 3-3 draw against St. Pauli on opening day, Dortmund they haven't really dropped the ball yet in this season. And they have to drop the ball eventually because they are Dortmund. That is a rule of the universe. And I think that they're going to do it here. So I'm going to tip my fellow, technically not my fellow Pfälzer. They are the Rheinhessen, the deep, deep rivals of my my beloved FCK. But I think they get a very engaging and energizing 3-1 victory in this instance.
Interesting, yeah. Jackie checking in from Scotland again has gone for 2-2 in the Mainz game and 4-0 Bayern. Yeah, so yeah, we've got all. I think that proves that the Mainz Dortmund game is one that not many people are settled on. There's a lot of different theories of the way this game is going to go. So let's move on to another interesting fixture, which is quite hard to tip: Wolfsburg versus Leipzig. So go on, Peter. I'll let you lead out on this one.
Well, I find myself, oddly looking forward to this one because I think that we have a couple of intriguing teams. I mean, ordinarily for a German, this matchup of 2 non-50+1 teams at the Volkswagen Arena, no less, would not pique a lot of interest. But there's a lot of interesting storylines going on here. Wolfsburg have been underachieving all year, despite the fact that they do have a great roster. And Simonis, our boy, has vastly exceeded our expectations. However, I count the fact that they were only, they won on opening day against Heidenheim. That's Heidenheim. We'll get to them in a second. They drew against Koeln with those 3 goals, and they lost against Wolfsburg and drew against Mainz as well. Marcel Schäfer, the current RB Leipzig sporting director, is returning to town for this one. I don't think you're going to see any changes in the Leipzig starting 11 after their win over Koeln last week. We'll just keep that winning formula in place. The big news out of Wolfsburg is that we're going to probably get a debut for Dagim because Andreas Skov-Olsen is hurt. I really have high hopes for this match, and I hope that we get a 2-2 draw or a 3-3 draw out of it. But I'm going to ultimately tip a 1-1 draw, and I really do hope in the the coverage of this one. If anybody was catching this game on DAZN last Sunday, they had a sideline interview with Sebastian Schinzelitz, the VfL Wolfsburg sporting director. It was the most boring in-match feature I've ever seen in my life. So as long as we don't see any of those, I think we're all winners. I'll play it conservatively at this point and tip a 1-1 draw, but I of course hope that there'll be many more goals in this one.
Yeah, but Ballum says that Peter's looking forward to a company team match in 2025. There you go. It's not often that Peter's talking up the company team matches, but there you go. I've gone a little bit more optimistic. I've gone for a 2-2 in this one, Peter. I feel as though Wolfsburg have a good record in general against Leipzig. Let's not forget that. And let's not forget the blowout that they had in the, obviously, the reverse fixture last season, the 5-1 win. Which was a rare good moment in the last 2 or 3 years, really, for Wolfsburg, wasn't it? But my God, they kind of caught fire that particular day. And they did get a 2-1 win as well over Leipzig in the last time this fixture was held. So I feel as though, Wolfsburg are well positioned to win the game. But yeah, these are two teams. Ultimately, we don't really know where they're going to finish. A lot of their quality this season is going to be decided on whether they can start winning games, because Wolfsburg in the last 2 home games have been winning very, very late on and haven't won either game, basically. So we all know that you've got to do the basics. As you say, Simonis has impressed me so far, and I think he's been pretty solid. But ultimately, he's only won 1 out of 4 games in the league, and this is the kind of test that they'll believe they can win. The likes of Amura is playing well. There's enough quality in that side to get them over the line in this one. But I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I feel as though Leipzig also up and down, but they were a little bit better last week against Koeln. And I think if they can repeat that performance, they'll come away with something from the Volkswagen Arena. So, yeah, let's move on to another, for me, one of the games that really stood off the page this weekend. Actually, I think this is an exciting-looking fixture. Pauli versus Leverkusen. Obviously, a tradition club versus company club, if you want to put it that way. St. Pauli have started the season brilliantly, basically. I feel as though they've been really, really good. The likes of Huntonji is really getting a lot of credit, but also the likes of Lager, the other forward, has been playing well. Schmeidt, that we still never quite know how to pronounce his name, has looked impressive at the back as well. As for Leverkusen, it's been the opposite, really. It's not been very impressive as far as I'm concerned. And I thought it was a lethargic performance last week against Gladbach as well. They probably should still have got over the line, but ultimately, our friend Tabakovic denied them a 3-pointer, a much-needed 3-pointer as well in the game. I think, obviously, we've got to remember that for Leverkusen, that Grimaldo's basically in the form of his life. Despite the low performance of Leverkusen in general, Grimaldo is just on it at the minute. He really is. Like, his free kicks, not only the shot free kicks, but also the played-in free kicks from the wide have just been on the mark this season. They really, really have. But I'm actually going to go for a mini shock. Well, quite a big shock, really, you would say, in this game. I feel as though Pauli are ready to get a real big kind of marquee win this season. Leverkusen have still not really impressed me that much under Hjulmand. As I say, it's been a bit better than it was under Ten Hag, but I watched a lot of the game against Copenhagen, and they were very lucky to even get a point out of that match in the Champions League. I think, against Gladbach, they should have been winning that game. Ultimately, they didn't do it. So it proves that there's still issues there at the back as well. I think the atmosphere is going to be a raucous atmosphere there Saturday afternoon at Halb 4 in the Millantor. And I've got a feeling they're going to get a 2-1 win here for Pauli. What do you think, Peter?
I will go with the inverse. I do think that, I know for a fact that it's going to be an incredible atmosphere at the Millantor. The fans have really come through this season. To be fair, there's not really been a home match at Pauli where they haven't come through over the past couple of decades. It's it's a tough one because Pauli versus Stuttgart last Friday evening, they really did come tumbling back down to earth, and we saw so many weaknesses in these squads. As a matter of fact, Funtanji, who had been, such a rising star here in Bundesliga and had everybody looking forward to the AFCON with Benin, he had a very, very poor match. So I think, as a matter of fact, you're going to see him rotated out in this one by a player that we haven't, in favor of a player that we haven't really discussed a lot, Martin Kjaz, who they, this last-minute blockbuster Pauli transfer from Magdeburg, somewhat made famous by the fact that the Magdeburg fan, the sporting director, left his laptop open at one of the matches from the reserves, and the fans took a picture of it and leaked this transfer. So I think you're going to see him, but he's coming in for a cold start. So I think that, when it comes to scouting St. Pauli and Hjulman, his debut has been a little bit soft, but he hasn't had a lot of time with the team. He hasn't had time to train the team in various different tactical formations and possibilities. Grimaldo, with his set piece stunner, lifted him to that win over Frankfurt. And then after that, you could see that the team really was just sort of running on muscle memory and fumes. I think that they've had an opportunity to have a solid training week here, and they are the team with more quality, even if a lot of moving components haven't quite settled into the formula, if you will. Should be interesting to see if Louis Oppi can do against Leverkusen what he did against them in the Pokal for Bielefeld last year. But I'll go ahead and go with the quality here, a 2-1 win for Leverkusen away. Although, the way that the St. Pauli Ultras are going to rock the atmosphere at the Millantor makes them winners in their own sense. So, that brings us to, I think, what Germans are discussing as, this is really the match of the weekend. Heidenheim versus Augsburg, and we're Sandro Wagner. All right, the man who has charmed all German football fans. We were all so very excited to see him get his first Bundesliga gig. We continue to be charmed by his sort of atypical and offbeat press conferences. He gave another one today, but he's a subject of much debate now. Whether or not he's ready, whether or not he was, he's too naive for this type of assignment, whether or not he lets too much slip. He doesn't really play his cards close to the vest like a traditional boring trainer should. So this is an absolute must win for him. If he loses here, I would see then that's the fourth straight loss for Augsburg. And I would see him. I would see Augsburg probably consider pulling the plug, if not this week, then most certainly over the October international break. I think that the Fuggerstädter respond here, and we get a scoreline similar to the scoreline in what was Jes Torup's debut. He actually beat Heidenheim 5-2 in his very first match back in the autumn of 2023. That's close to a couple of years ago. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for this. I think that Asende, now coming back from suspension and ready to start up front for the first time, possibly alongside Tietz, gives Wagner a good double-pronged attack. Giannoulis is fit again, so he has, and Wolf has overcome his injury, so you have very, very strong play up the wings. Unfortunately, Jeffrey Havoleo has been injured, but that should be okay because you can run a back three with both Schlotterbeck and Sesiga, who are extraordinary players. They've just been in poor form lately, and Matsima, or even bring in the young American Noah Kai Banks. So I think that tactically things work out pretty well in Augsburg here. You can run a 3-4-3 or you can run a 3-3-2-2. Either one works. And Heidenheim are just point blank awful. I mean, they are terrible this year, and we absolutely know that much. And it's just going to be a very, very long season for the Ostalpenschwaben. The good news is that Mark and I should have no problems getting tickets, and we'll happily do it.
That is true.
Heidenheim, which is not far. It's sort of at the midway point between our two German bases. So we'll happily go there and check out the atmosphere. But I mean, they just don't have the quality this year. They don't have anybody who can score goals. They don't have. Every time, so Pacarada is out, Honsak is out. Ordinarily, for another team, that wouldn't really matter all that much. I think in their case, I mean, I think this is going to get ugly, and I'm going to go for a 5-1 Augsburg.
Oh, jeez. I think Sandro is going to be happy listening to that. I mean, yeah, I'm not quite as optimistic for Augsburg. I see what you mean, Peter. A lot of your logic is very good. I think clearly Augsburg pretty much man for man are a better team than Heidenheim. In fact, they are man for man a better team. I don't think there's any one player that would really get into the Augsburg side on Heidenheim's roster. But at the same time, I'm worried for Augsburg. I really am. It's the mistakes as much as the system, the individual errors at the back from the likes of Sesiga, Schlotterbeck, Hauveleu this season, Wolf even, the normally reliable Wolf. It's not been a good season for them so far. And there is pressure on this game, as you say, Peter. I mean, if they lose this, then, you're really starting to look at the beginning of the end for Wagner already, I feel. If they win, all of a sudden it's 2 wins from 5. It's not the end of the world again. At this stage of the season, you're starting to try and find where you're going to finish in the table, basically, aren't you? If they're going to be in a dogfight, and Heidenheim basically are going to be in a dogfight. I think that's very clear. And for them, it's more of a question, can they even compete in the dogfight this season, not whether they can avoid the dogfight. For Augsburg, the jury's still very much out. I mean, it's still possible they could challenge the top half with this squad this season if Wagner can get something going. But what we've seen so far, they look like kind of the fringes of the dogfight kind of team, I would say, from what I've seen. But there's still time to change that. I've been umming and ahhing about this one all day, but you've convinced me, Peter. I think with Ascende and Giannoulis, they are very solid players. Especially Giannoulis gives them so much quality on that left-back position. I really like him as a player. And I think Ascende has to start the game. He can't be messing around with Kumur again in that position. So I've gone for a 2-1. I'm not quite as optimistic as you as the 5-1, but I think a 2-1 Augsburg win. I mean, if they can't beat Heidenheim, who can they beat in this league, basically? So they simply have to win the game, Augsburg, and I think they will just about find a way to do that. So that concludes the Halbviers on Saturday, I should say. So let's move on to the Topspiel, Saturday night Topspiel. It's a really good-looking game, really. Gladbach, Frankfurt. I always love the traditional clubs when they come together because, regardless of even thinking about what happens on the pitch, you've got to look at what happens off the pitch in these kind of games. And it's always raucous atmosphere, pyro, choreo, just about everything going on in these kind of fixtures. But yeah, as for the match, it's not looking good really for Gladbach, although they did look a lot better under Polanski, let's be honest. Polanski could be the man. I mean, for me, it's still a little bit too early to be giving him the full-time gig. Yeah, I think we need to see another couple of games before you can decide on that. He did look good in the first game. They look more robust. They look more hard working than we'd seen in the previous 3 games. And they got a relatively well-deserved point against Leverkusen away from home. Frankfurt, I don't know what to say about them right now because, after the first two games, everyone was saying, oh, they're going to challenge Bayern for the title. Chanuzun is the best player in the league. Doan flew out of the blocks as well. Johnny B's even got a couple of goals in recent weeks too. So there's a lot to look forward to for Frankfurt, but ultimately they've only got 6 points from the 4 games. It's not a great turnover, really. They lost to 9-man Leverkusen, and then they lost against Union Berlin, which nobody thought was possible, really. And they've got to up the defence because, as Peter said on Monday, they got completely done on the counter, basically. And I'm still not really convinced by Robin Koch at all. Like, he keeps making errors, and he's a man he's a German international, quite a well-capped German international too. He's played in the Premier League with Leeds, but he's just never quite done it for me. I feel as though he should be a lot better than what he is, really, Robin. The K-Town native, by the way, Peter's brethren. As for the game, I think it's quite a hard one to tip because if Gladbach plays similar to how they did against Leverkusen, they could compete in the game. But ultimately, I think with the week off this week for Frankfurt, that's going to be the changer, I believe. I hope that Johnny B starts ahead of Wahi because I'm yet to see what Wahi has done at all, really, in 80. How long is it now? 7-8 months at the club, and he's basically done nothing right the whole time. I think if Johnny B starts to get a 3-1 win in this game, the SGE, what do you think, Peter?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go with Jackie's got my tip here. I'm going with a 1-1 draw. I mean, the problem that we have here is that there's a lot of tactical tweaking that both trainers have to do. And, Polanski is trying out not only this wholly new system that he tried out against Leverkusen last weekend, but as the former Gladbach reserve trainer, he's trying to bring a lot of the boys that were under his aegis up. And so what he did last week, we got this kid, Charles Herrmann. Again, no relation to Patrick Herrmann. But, so he got the assist. He immediately gave him corner-taking responsibilities. And there's the hot tip for this weekend is if you watch the press conference, he's bringing up Jan Urbich from the BMG reserves, and he's scored 11 goals in 9 appearances in the Regionalliga. So he's training with the pros and will probably make the squad. I don't know. I mean, you got to throw anybody up there to replace Tim Kleindienst at this point because you really can't find much of a replacement. So, I mean, what we saw from Gladbach last week, I mean, this is a whole new, totally novel system. As Rocco Wrights himself put it, I mean, the whole deck is being reshuffled. I mean, it was like a 3-4-2-1, I think, as best I could see, with Sturge and Kastrop working behind Maschino. And, that's weird. It was weird to see Gladbach in that because we've pretty much always seen them in this 4-2-3-1 under Seoane. So he's got something new, and Topmüller has some personnel problems that will force him to do some tweaking. I think Wahi, I mean, he had a very good camp, and he has, shown he's demonstrated some ability in the early going this season as well. So it's possible that you could get a double striker set featuring Burkhardt and Wahi, or maybe even Burkhardt and Mishi. You can. I mean, in principle, Kanuzun can play up there too. Why not? Give him a chance to score his 5th goal in 5 games. And I think that might happen. That might happen we get a goal from Uzun. I don't know who we get the goal from in Gladbach with Robin Hack out. Doesn't matter that Gio Reyna's hurt at this point. I don't know. I just let it go. GR7 at this point. Just let it go. I mean, I've let it go. I've let it go a long time ago. He was one of my favorite players, but I've woken up to reality. I mean, it's between the injuries and have just noticeably decreased his pace. In terms of what went wrong with Frankfurt last week, and we'll get to this because Union are playing in the Sunday capper. But actually, I mean, I think Union are a lot better than we gave them credit for. So Frankfurt didn't play all that badly. Frankfurt, I think, retained the edge here, but it is a home match for Gladbach. And with all of the uncertainty, there's another thing. Nnamdi Collins is out, and Rasmus Christensen is out. So Topmüller doesn't have a right back. And you know what happens when Topmüller when he has personnel problems, he goes crazy with it. Yeah, we're not going to use that vulgar word that we used with you, me and Cam a few months ago. But, I mean, he just goes crazy trying to build some sort of blocky, choppy, weird tactical construct. And I can see it. I can feel it. It's going to be so weird. He's going to have like Aurelio Buta and Aurela Amenda in a back three or something. It's gonna be bad. I have this feeling that Topmüller is going to pick up a horrible recipe because when he's facing personnel problems, he just doesn't know what to do. So I think what you're going to see here is a little bit of what they might call a tactician's game. But for the most part, it's going to be choppy and blocky, and it's going to be very physical. So there's going to be a lot of interruptions, and neither team is going to really get into flow. So it feels like a 1-1 draw, a disappointing 1-1 draw in the top Spiel. But the atmosphere will be great. But I just don't see how we get a good football match out of this with all of these moving components on both sides.
Yeah. So and starting Sunday up, we got another triple header as well. We seem to get so many of them now, don't we? Because there's so many European fixtures, basically, just all the frigging time, basically now. On one side, it's good, but we know that Germans don't always like the midweek Englische Woche, as they say. But Freiburg are a team that have had an Englische Woche, and it was quite an interesting one, Peter. I thought of you, actually, when I saw this fixture. It was a European derby almost, wasn't it, against Basel, which was quite an interesting one. I mean, it looked like a great atmosphere there as well at Europa Park Stadion. I think there's only around 50 kilometers separating Freiburg and Basel, just over the Swiss border. And Freiburg got another win, didn't they? They've now backed it up after that awful start where people were really starting to question, and they backed it up with 3 straight wins, all against relatively tough opponents too. So congratulations to them for that. They never seem to go through a real crisis, Freiburg, of results. The next win is never far down the line, and that's something that Julian Schuster has kind of built on really well from obviously his the godfather Christian Streich before him as well. They're coming up against another team on good form still. For me, Hoffenheim have still been one of the best teams in the league this season, despite the fact that they've lost 2 games. I felt as though nothing went right for them against Bayern because they played well but came out of it with a 4-1 loss at home. So if you only saw the results in this game, you think, oh, they got battered. But actually, in reality, it wasn't the case. Will be interesting to see if Hoffenheim go with the Aslani and Damar as like strikers in this game, which was maybe a little bit too much of a push in this particular match against Bayern. Maybe they were a little bit too attacking at times, but Damar did play better than Aslani as it was in the particular match. So they definitely have options. Hoffenheim have bags of options this season, and they've got a lot of players playing well. The Berger Abdullahi is still working really well too. So I think they've got a lot to look forward to. They've won their other 2 away games at Leverkusen and Union. So they look quite good going into this one. This is 2 formed teams for me. So we could have quite a good curtain raiser for the Sunday fixtures. I was really struggling which way to go in this game, but something just tells me that Hoffenheim are going to nick this one. I don't know why. I feel as though they are overall a better team this season than Freiburg. What I've seen so far, I think they've got more options as well to come in. Also, the fact that Freiburg have had the European Englische Woche as well could potentially work against them. So I've gone for a 3-2 Hoffenheim win here. I think it could be a good game, this one, but it's going to go the way that not many German fans would have wanted. What do you think, Peter?
I'm going to go with Freiburg. I'm glad that you enjoyed the match on Wednesday. I enjoyed it immensely as well. And Freiburg and Basel are 2 of my favorite cities. I love traveling south to them when I'm at my Karlsruhe home base there in Germany. It's funny. Speaking of things that keep happening to us, how many times have we gotten this fixture in one of our prediction pods? How many times have we talked about this fixture? How many times have we said, Okay, it's the Baden derby. That's not really a derby because the two sides.
That's why I try to avoid it.
Yeah, but something that we always say is that this match oftentimes delivers, and it really does. I mean, it's delivered so many memorable matches over the past few years, and the most recent one was a 3-2 victory for Freiburg at the Europaparkstadion. The one that I'll personally never forget is I believe it was in 2022, the 7-goal affair.
Yeah, the 4-3.
It was a 4-3 there at the Prezio Arena in Sinsheim. But we've gotten a 3-2 in 2024 in January. We got a 0-0 and we got a 1-1, but there was also a 2-1 for Freiburg in August of 2023, another 2-1, and so we usually get a very, very good game here. And so let's talk a little bit about Freiburg and how they've turned their season around, which is incredibly impressive. I mean, they started with these 2 consecutive losses in the league to Augsburg and to Koeln. So things were not looking good for them at all. And it all turned around with that late dramatic comeback victory over Rory Stuttgart on match day 3 in front of the hometown crowd. And then they took out a Werder Bremen side, which many of us were tipping to beat them last week because Werder Bremen had done so well at the end of the transfer window, getting their personnel holes plugged. But they were absolutely on fire. Noah Atabolo broke that record. Vincenzo Grivo also sunk his penalty, called Noah Atabolo a magnificent Sauhund, a magnificent bastard. Hell yes. That's the way we do it. And well, Grifo's from Pforzheim, so I guess that's do it in Pforzheim. But wow, what a match against Basel in front of the hometown crowd. An incredible performance from 2 German players that you would think are 2 of the most boring German players ever, Maximilian Eggestein and Patrick Osterhager.
Yeah.
I've
forgotten that Osterhager even still played for them because he doesn't seem to have played that often.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what Freiburg are doing is they just breathe new life into players. Lukas Kübler springs to life out of nowhere. Anthony Jung joins from Werder Bremen and all of, he started on Wednesday and had a great match. And Günther was teasing that, Eggestein and Osterhager are the double six power, the twins. And so, yeah, would you have wagered safe money that we'd be just, talking about the awesome double six setup of Maximilian Eggestein and Patrick Osterhager the season?
Crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is, and the fans, they printed up these lovely T-shirts, kein Weg zu weit, no journey too far, for the whole team, and they sent them all to Vincenzo Grifo, and he gave them out in the locker room. And I just wrapped up the piece on Freiburg. They were facing the Pfannkurve on Wednesday night with these T-shirts on. Kind of an awkward picture because they all had on their Arsene Wenger puffer jackets and these cheap T-shirts on. They look like a bunch of it looked like they were straight out of the Lego movie or something. I like them. I think that Hoffenheim, much to my chagrin, are an incredibly talented team as well. And I think we get 7 goals out of this. And I've tipped this before and it's not happened, but I'm gonna tip it again, and I'm gonna say 4-3 Freiburg in a magnificent start to your Sunday. So there are a lot of matches that you can plan on skipping this weekend, but this one I highly recommend tuning into.
Yeah, definitely another one that for me is quite a good looking Sunday actually in general, especially the first couple of games. I think FC versus Stuttgart is another match with 2 teams on pretty good form. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of teams that are on 6 points, having won 2 and lost 2, aren't there? And Stuttgart have obviously also fall into that category, the same as Freiburg and Hoffenheim, as well as other teams. But FC obviously just a little bit better off than that with just 1 point extra on 7 points. I think both sides look pretty good going forward, to be honest. FC also created quite a lot of chances last week too against Leipzig. I think your boy Ragnar Ake, I mean, how did he miss that one for the 3-2? I mean, they should have had 2 goals ultimately at Leipzig. So it was still a good attacking performance, and defensively not quite as good. They let the ball down a little bit at Leipzig, I felt, defensively. But in general, they're still creating chances. It's kind of, this kind of football is direct, but it's attacking at the same time. Obviously a lot of it going through Marius Bulter. Thielmann just carries on having this brilliant season, doesn't he? He's just really tearing it up. The likes of Waldschmidt as well is having a really, really good season. And the FC are another one of those clubs, a bit like Freiburg. They just kind of breathe life into players that you think don't have any life in them, basically. And I think, obviously they had a couple of bad years, the back end of the Steffen Baumgart era, but I see life back in the Carnival City again now. It seems as though they're really playing well, but this is going to be a tough challenge, against the VfB, who also struck into form against St. Pauli. They have some really good players, ultimately, Stuttgart. I think El Canous could end up going down as being one of the signings of the season, because he just looks like a maverick, and he's one that I've got my eye on that's going to have a real top season this year. I think Chema Andres as well looks like a great pickup from the Real youth system, and it's another strong squad from the VfB, despite obviously Nick Voltemade vacating the club. So yeah, this was a hard one to tip. I mean, Stuttgart have obviously lost the first 2 away games this season, so that has to be bared in mind. Obviously, FC have only played 1 home game, weirdly, out of the first 4, which they won very, very convincingly against Freiburg. So I've gone for a 2-2 in this game. I think it's going to be entertaining. I just don't see Stuttgart winning this game. I think FC do have goals in them. We've seen that Stuttgart aren't the most defensively solid, although it was better last week against Pauli. But I think this is a much harder task, ultimately, going away to Koeln. And what will be another brilliant atmosphere. I think there's a lot of games that look like it's going to be really good atmospheres this week. Just proves what happens, when you get the likes of Hamburg back in the league and Koeln, it really makes a difference, doesn't it? Because, these clubs, the fan culture behind some of these clubs, like the fans just live and breathe it, don't they? All the way, every week, all the way through the summer, they're practicing choreos and raising money for pyro and things. There are some great looking fixtures this weekend, actually. So I've gone for a 2-2. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I agree with you. It's a very, very difficult match to tip. I mean, on the topic of atmosphere, every Bundesliga match this weekend is going to have a fabulous atmosphere. And I include Heidenheim in that. Probably the only exception is going to be Wolfsburg, because they let it all hang out in a match earlier. And that's about the extent to what we can expect from Wolfsburg this season, their anniversary match. Yeah, I mean, this is an incredibly difficult one to tip, because Koeln are such a good side, and they are, and really, it's not just, I mean, the depth that they have off of the bench. My former Kaiserslautern boy, Ragnar Ake, keeps messing up, but eventually he's going to strike. I mean, he's just rounding himself into form for the for the top tier, and I think that he's going to strike off the bench. A player that we absolutely have to mention for Koeln is Said El-Mala, the player who Brighton were prepared to pay 20 million euros for, even though he hadn't played a Bundesliga match this summer. I mean, this is a kid that, I mean, when you see him and what he's capable of, I mean, he started to accrue these Bundesliga minutes. He has scored a goal. He's really just, I mean, he looks incredible off the bench. I think he might be playing for the German national team in the World Cup this summer. It's really quite apparent. I mean, he's just a Meister, super sweet, super slick dribbler. Very, very Flo Wirtz-like in terms of his just raw skill and creativity and intuition. So, I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by him. Of course, we have to keep an eye on what's going on here with Stuttgart in the Europa League this season. And as we mentioned before, Rory and Travis will be online on the channel later to give you a nice recap. It is halftime. It looks like there's been an injury to Finn Jelch. Who cares? Luka Jaquez is back fit and coming in and reclaiming his spot, but no goals thus far. Interesting that Kema Andres once again gets the start in midfield over captain Atakan Karatsoa. Otherwise, Buonanni is, I think, the only real rotation, and Henriks, but Buonanni on the right-hand side. So he's going to start Tomas on the weekend. Possibly Wagnermann over Assignon at right back. Yeah, well, we'll have to see, because I think Assignon is probably the one who should start. El Kanouche should definitely start. Demirovic has to start. They don't have another striker. So, yeah, this is a tough one. This is a very, 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 very tough one to tip. Whoa, what can I say? Based on the fact that I thought that Stuttgart would be a little bit fatigued, I went with a 1-0 Koeln victory, and I guess I'll stick with that. I like your tip, though. I like your tip of a goal-laden affair. I think that that's entirely possible. I just somehow think that, Krasniak, after incurring his first loss last week, will play it a little bit more conservatively. And I'm still disappointed that Christian Titz didn't get the Koeln job, because
maybe we'll get him back in the Bundesliga one day. Anyway,
I could make such great jokes, I think Titz is going to play close to the vest this evening. I think Titz won't be exposed. Or
his tactics all went tits up. We're waiting for you, Christian. We're waiting for you. You're going to get there eventually. Yeah. Good. So, let's finish off. We've got one more to go. And it's a game, again, it's going to be a good atmosphere there. I believe this is the first time these clubs have met in a Bundesliga fixture as well, because Union got promoted in the year that HSV got relegated. So they kind of both missed each other a little bit. But it's another one where I think the atmosphere should be pretty raucous in this one too. At the first eye, HSV, I guess I'm not sure when the last time they visited there was, because obviously the two clubs basically swapped places effectively after long stints in the same league. So this is going to be an interesting fixture as well. Union, wow, they looked so impressive last week. I thought it was a brilliant performance. That front three just were doing bits, weren't they, basically? I think, really, really good. Burke getting that historic hat-trick. Illich was equally as good, really setting up all three goals too. And Anza with that wonderful strike from distance to set it off. So maybe there is more in this Union Berlin side than what we thought. And it seems as though they've signed pretty well from what I can see so far. As for HSV, they got over the line against Heidenheim, but it wasn't really impressive. They conceded too many chances against a poor Heidenheim side for me, and were quite lucky to win the game, really, in some ways, I felt. This is a trickier challenge. I think the only thing to mention in this one, though, is the fact that there's a lot of onus on Union to win the game, and historically they have struggled in this kind of fixture at home against weaker teams. I remember that they lost, obviously, to Bochum a couple of years ago, and then last year they also were given the technical loss as well against a struggling Bochum side. I remember they only drew against Greuther Fürth a couple of years ago too, when they got relegated after a poor season. They also lost to Holstein Kiel at home last season too, so they don't have a good record against strugglers at home. So bearing that in mind, I think this is going to be a totally different kind of game. They're not going to get many chances to counter, as they'll have most of the ball in this match. So it's going to be totally different to the Frankfurt game. HSV, obviously they finally broke the goal duck against Heidenheim, but let's be honest, I think me and you, Pete, could get a goal against Heidenheim at the minute. So I wouldn't read too much into that improvement in attacking form. And let's be honest, the two goals were pretty scrappy, to say the least, really, weren't they? I think we're going to see a 1-1 draw here. I think a lot of people will be tipping Union Berlin, but as I say, I doubt that they don't like to break down a low block for me. And I think HSV, again, like they've done most of this season, they're going to play a low block. They're going to be happy to get out of there with a point. It could even be a 0-0, actually, this one, but I've gone for a 1-1. Peter, what are you going for?
I will tip Union, and I decided to give Union a closer look after what happened last week, because I simply had to know. I had to know what the hell was going on with this team. So I noticed that what Baumgart has done is he has switched from a 3-2-2 to a straightforward 3-4-3, and that's what makes this team so effective on the counter. Is that the wingbacks are deployed very far afield. And I do think I took that low block into account, but I think that they can break it. And what's going on here is that Ansa and Burke have incredible pace. And I never noticed this about Oliver Burke before. I really didn't. I mean, the problem is that when I was scouting him in Bundesliga fixtures, he was often, Mr. Super Sub. He would come off the bench late. So I never realized how much pace he had. And I wonder why nobody in the Bundesliga noticed it earlier either, because they were constantly sending him out on loan. I mean, it was, I mean, maybe they thought he wasn't working, he wasn't using his gift well enough on the training pitch. That's entirely possible. But what's also amazing is that you have Illich, who is working as almost a false nine, sort of a deep-pocketed striker on the counter, and he is very, very good at shielding the ball. So a lot of reasons why these counters are so effective, and Illich is picking up the assists on these counters, is because he shields the ball while the other two strikers in the front three take off and hopefully remain on side. So it's really, I like Union. And there has to be an answer for this, because we expected Union to be one of the worst goal-scoring sides in the league. And even after the Pokal match against Gütersloh, I was still, they 5 past Gütersloh, but I thought to myself, that was all on set pieces. But this is really amazing what's going on with Union. And, when it comes to HSV, they did not play a very good first half against Heidenheim. They also allowed a lot of chances against Heidenheim last weekend. I think that this win against Heidenheim, there were some great storylines, like Luka Vuskovic getting the first Bundesliga goal in 7 years, and we all know how special he is to the club. And Fabio Vieira getting the assist there on Philippe's goal and everything. But and so there was but this 3-4-3 from Poulsen, it did not perform well against a very, very poor Heidenheim team. So, really all they did was beat the only team in the league that's worse than them. They didn't do that well. And so it's 3-4-3 versus 3-4-3, with the exception that Baumgart's 3-4-3 is much better drilled. It's much more effective. It's much faster. And on a man-for-man basis, I think that Union outmatched them and outclassed them in every last respect. So, every so often you never know. At the Stadion on the Alte Försterei, when we had that 8-goal half against Stuttgart spring, goals can explode. And the Eisernen Ultras, the Union Ultras, they famously were like, this isn't my team. What am I watching now? But I think that we're in for a treat, and I like Jackie's tip, who's probably also tipping another Oliver Burke hat trick. Why not? I'll go 3-1 for Union in the capper.
Yeah, it would be great to see Oliver Burke, because as you say, he's had a hell of a career. He's still only 28, actually. And he's played for around about 10 or 11 clubs in his career. And a lot of them have been on loan, as you say. He's been all over Europe, basically trying to apply his trade. But it does seem as though he's finally coming to his best form of his career, really. Obviously, he finished his time at Werder Bremen very well. They wanted to keep him, but Union kind of poached him under the noses, really, didn't they? And put it one way, if they can keep that front three going, they're going to have a decent season, you feel, don't you? So that just about concludes everything for the match week 5 predictions. So thanks a lot again to the guys for checking in. Jackie, thanks for your predictions. That was fantastic. He's gone for a 3-1, as you say, against for Union. Thanks for Ballum as well. Good to see you again. Always great to see you checking in. So yeah, if you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget that we're not only a YouTube channel, we're also a podcast as well. So check out our Spotify and Apple podcast. Don't forget as well to tune in for Rory's and VfB Americana. I always call them Tropicana, Americana's podcast. And we'll see you again Monday on the other side of the weekend. So see you then, guys.